Hi, everybody. Welcome. Just go ahead and sit tight for a minute while we let Zoom load in all of our attendees and participants today. But welcome and thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning for ADU Building 101, where we'll talk about the process to build an ADU in Southern California at a high level and also drill in on habitat a bit. Just sit tight for about a minute as we let folks trickle in. All right, thanks for joining everyone. Welcome to ADU Building 101. Thanks for taking some time out of your Saturday morning. And I hope everyone is staying safe and sound. We're going to talk about a lot of good stuff today, but just some housekeeping items first. You should be muted, your video should be off. This presentation takes about 30 minutes, and then we'll have about 30 minutes for Q&A at the end. You'll also be receiving a special discount code that you can use to get half off. That discount code will be coming via email after the webinar. It'll also be coming via chat towards the middle or end of the webinar. So watch out for that discount code to go ahead and lock in a site visit and formal project assessment for your property for half off. And then the other thing is at the end, you'll be receiving a poll. We always value feedback, so we'll be looking for some feedback from you via a poll at the end on what you thought of the presentation today. But welcome and thanks for joining us. Just to dive in on our agenda today, we'll spend part one talking about the high-level generalities of ADUs. We are evangelists in general for ADUs, whether you build an ADU with us or not. So we want to make sure you're educated about the new laws and regulations and legislation that was passed recently to make it effectively a constitutional right in California to build an ADU. We'll talk about some of the use cases that we see, who's building an ADU and why. And then we'll also dig in on process with Habitat specifically, what our process looks like, our different floor plans and pricing, and how you can get started with us. And as mentioned, the Q&A is generally very popular. So go ahead and use the Q&A feature rather than the chat feature to ask your questions. We have a team behind the scenes that can be answering them live. And then we'll also at the end have a lot of time for live questions as well. That's our agenda for today. My name is Eric Preston. I'm the Southern California GM at Habitat and also head of business development and strategic partnerships. I'm also on the side a personal real estate investor, and previously was I went to UCLA and then previously was at Open Door, which just went public, where I was the head of new product operations. We've also got Liz Schaefer joining us today. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Eric. I am a senior home consultant with Habitat here in Southern California, with our office that will be opening in Burbank, as well as a model home towards the end of February. And my background is in sales as well as real estate. I was a real estate appraiser here in Southern California for 15 years. I'm also fifth generation Angelino, so I'm very familiar with all of the areas here in Southern California, so I can bring to the table a lot of expertise in understanding the nuances of different cities. As well as Eric, I am a Bruin, so graduated as well from UCLA, and excited that you're all here to learn more about ADUs.
Awesome. Well, let's start with what is an accessory dwelling unit or an ADU. So it's defined now legislatively. An ADU is in the California State Code and in all local codes as well. It stands for specifically accessory dwelling unit. But what is an accessory dwelling unit? It's really broad. Many things can be considered an ADU. The primary definition is that it's a secondary dwelling that sits on the same parcel as a primary dwelling, whether that primary dwelling is a single family home or a multifamily property. But within the sort of secondary dwelling definition, we have a lot of different forms we can take. What you'll find in common is that they have an entrance, an egress, they'll have a bathroom, sleeping space, and living space. And then it's permitted, livable, rentable square footage that sits apart and separate as a secondary dwelling to the primary. But again, they take many forms. So they can be detached, like the one you see here. And everything Habitat does, by the way, is single story, detached, manufactured home HUD code ADUs. But detached is a standalone secondary structure that's separately permitted on the same parcel with entrance, egress, sanitation space, cooking space, and sleeping space. ADUs can also be attached. So if you picture like maybe an attached garage that's connected to the primary home that's been converted to a livable sort of studio apartment or one bedroom apartment, that would be an attached ADU. You've also got junior ADUs or JDUs. They're defined a little bit separately legislatively, almost like a subcategory. They have very different rules. They must be less than 500 square feet. They must be attached to the primary residence. They must share a door into the primary residence. And usually they have like a kitchenette rather than a full kitchen. It's really like taking a bedroom and converting it into like a micro apartment. But they're much less conducive for investors because they cannot be rented separately without occupying owner occupancy in the primary home. So that's JDUs. JDUs are a little bit funny. We won't talk about them much because they're much less popular than regular ADUs. Broadly, you can also have conversion ADUs, so taking a garage or a basement or even a large hallway space or a boiler room, converting that to an ADU. The key in all these situations and all these different terms that we've heard for ADUs, carriage home, cottage home, in-law unit, second unit, is that they're secondary to the primary residence. They're typically connected to the main dwelling's utilities, but they can totally at the option of the customer be connected with a brand new service to the street. And then optionally, you can also have things like a separate address or separate metering. So they afford you a lot of flexibility as a homeowner to create additional permitted square footage that can be rented or lived in separately. One of the reasons these are extremely hot right now is that there was a sweeping set of new legislation that was passed in January 1st of 2020. Went into effect, I should say, January 1st of 2020. So statewide, there are now guidelines that make it effectively your constitutional right in the state of California to build an accessory dwelling unit on your property. There's very little that anyone, the local cities, can do to stop you because statewide law takes precedent. So every single family home in California is now guaranteed to be allowed one accessory dwelling unit and one junior accessory dwelling unit per parcel. The big kicker here is that where previously you used to have to go through a 120-day plus discretionary review with your local city or local county, local jurisdiction to get approval to build an ADU, it is now a 60-day approval process, although many cities are delayed right now given the pandemic. State law dictates 60 days, and it's a ministerial permit review process to get an ADU, which means you fill out a form, and if you check the boxes, you get a stamp, and you're allowed to build and permitted for an ADU with both the planning department and the building department. Additional legislation that was passed to make it easier and promote the development of ADUs throughout California. Permit fees have been reduced. Parking requirements have effectively been eliminated in most, if not all, urban areas. Owner occupancy laws that used to oftentimes be imposed by local jurisdictions to require you to live in the primary in order to rent out the ADU, those have been removed for a 5-year period. It's about 4 years left, so I would get started now if you want to be able to rent both the primary residence and the ADU. The other huge thing is local jurisdictions used to create a lot of burden on homeowners to be able to build an ADU by creating infeasible setback requirements. And they would say you must not be able to build within 20 feet of any property line, rear or side property line, which effectively made it impossible to build ADUs in most local jurisdictions. Those setback requirements have now been standardized statewide at 4 feet. A lot of people, when they think about ADUs, I speak with multifamily investors all the time who don't even realize that the law is even more pervasive for multifamily properties. So if you own a duplex or above, you actually can build a massive amount of ADUs. You get 2 ADUs guaranteed, detached ADUs per multifamily parcel. And in addition to that, you get to build conversion ADUs up to 25% of the number of existing units on the property. So if you have, the example here is a 16-unit multifamily property, you're allowed to build 2 detached ADUs and 4 conversion ADUs within the space of the existing multifamily dwelling. This is a Southern California focused webinar. So while local jurisdictions have a lot less say in the permitting and approval of ADUs, it's really a statewide issue now. There are some local specifics. So we'll talk about the city of Los Angeles, since it's sort of the largest city in Southern California. Mostly it follows state law. So side and rear setbacks, again, cannot be greater than 4 feet anywhere, and Los Angeles follows that. The fire marshal in LA County and LA City can sometimes require larger setbacks if you don't want to have fire sprinklers in the ADU, but generally fire sprinklers have been at the statewide level mandated to be not required. There's some exceptions if depending on how close you are to other dwellings, but generally 4-foot setbacks throughout LA. 6 to 10 feet is typical as a setback requirement from a primary dwelling. Under 800 square feet, actually LA just punts and defaults to the state law. Above 800 square feet on an ADU, LA still encourages the development and construction of ADUs. So it mostly tracks state law there. There's a few nuances. Multifamily, no maximum ADU size period, and you're allowed those 2 detached that I mentioned at the statewide level. One nuance in LA that actually is generally true statewide as well, any detached ADUs must have solar systems installed. That's a big deal. That's very expensive. It's good for the environment, but it can add a lot of money to your development costs. One interesting and cool wrinkle that Habitat offers you is you have the option, because you're building with us to federal HUD building code rather than local code, you will get approval to build a structure without solar panels. It's sort of an exception to the rule if you're building with Habitat. LA also, and this is a bit unique, allows 2-story ADUs. Habitat does not do those, but you must be greater than 800 square feet, and then you're out of that ministerial review process. You're now in a local zoning discretionary review process if you're building a 2-story ADU above 800 square feet. Liz, do you want to talk about
Sure.
why ADUs are so hot right now?
Sure. So to begin with, I want to tell you a little bit about what we do and why these ADUs are becoming so popular. We are a turnkey solution, so we manage every aspect of creating the ADU for you on your property. And we do have a team of experts that are specifically assigned to your project that handle every aspect of the process. We literally take care of everything from initial concept, design, handling, pulling the permits, which can be a headache, but we take care of that for you, to literally giving you keys to your home. I think right now, especially with the pandemic going on and people thinking more about their living spaces, it's becoming more and more important to either keep other family members close to them. It is much more affordable than some of these costly retirement communities for family members. It's also for adult children. Rentals are very popular because of the ability to have the second unit on your property. The historically low interest rates makes this more affordable, and these new laws in California make it very, very easy for you as well. Touched on the first one a little bit, but who's building these? A lot of families are building them for parents that are aging. They want to keep them close to home, close with the grandchildren, and keep that family unit closer. I think there's just been a shift with the whole pandemic of wanting to be closer to your family. Another thing we are seeing with just talking to a lot of people out there is that as the baby boomers are getting older, they really don't want the large homes. Sometimes they don't want the large 2-story homes. So what they're seeing is creating that ADU for them to live in. They can rent out the primary residence. In a lot of instances, they've owned that property for years. So it becomes a cash cow for them. And they have beautiful ADU in the rear of their property. I touched on this a little bit more. Right now, as we all know, just especially living in California, Southern California, it's just very, very expensive for our kids to get started. So one way we can help them is to put an ADU in the back of our yard. They can start saving up so that they eventually can hop into the real estate here in Southern California. And then once they move out, you have the ability to have an income producing property in your backyard. And the last is for investors. I know Eric touched on this a little bit, but this is really the time to do it as well. And the cap rates, we're happy to walk through that with you. Eric happens to be very savvy when it comes to this area, and he's happy to walk through the advantages of building with us and what that cap rate would look like.
Yeah, the returns are generally just off the charts for investors because you already own this very expensive land. You're getting geographic arbitrage on the cost to construct, but the same high rental yields. So unheard of cap rates in California.
Okay. So as Eric mentioned, these are all built to HUD standards, which means they are approved, the exterior and interiors. We build our units to those standards. So we take care of, as I mentioned, every step of the way. We don't do financing. However, we do have some fabulous partners that we're happy to give you their information to see different creative ways of financing the ADU. But we really do make this very turnkey. A little bit about the company. Our headquarters is in Southern California. We're very well funded and venture backed, and we really believe in this mission to create affordable living in California. So just to give you, as I mentioned, we take care of everything for you. We've created different interior and exterior packages, which I'll touch upon. I think it's on the next slide, that really adhere to almost any design exterior you have to your primary residence. In the case of just our design, we have in-house architects that are really fabulous in terms of helping you create some specific changes you may like to the units. For example, if you're not a fan of siding and perhaps that doesn't look great with your primary residence, you do have the ability to do a shingle exterior as well as stucco. So we do have the ability to customize to a certain degree the exterior of the units.
Yeah, Habitat is a turnkey provider of ADUs. So we really handle everything from A to Z, as Liz said. One of our most important values for customers is convenience. We don't want you to have to manage and orchestrate a really large, complex construction project. So we handle it all for you, everything from permitting process to the actual build and install of the unit itself. And it really is a very simple design process for you because we're working with, pre-architected and pre-engineered plans built to HUD code. So you can sort of choose from a menu in a more constrained design process that still allows you the flexibility to get what you want. The other thing I'd say outside of convenience, there's really like three main takeaways when it comes to Habitat. The first is cost. We're just not going to lose on price, period. We are by far the lowest possible cost solution to build a detached structure in your backyard. Number of reasons for that, but largely the prefab construction process and building manufactured homes affords just a ton of efficiencies in the build process and bulk pricing. So lowest possible cost, fastest possible speed to get a unit completed. Because we're doing the unit and the site work concurrently, we save about half the time from a traditional stick-built construction process. And then control. I mentioned convenience, but control in a more nuanced way is really important. Traditional construction is rife with delays, with change orders, with upcharges. I don't know anyone who's tried to build a home in a traditional stick-built fashion that hasn't added 6 months to a year to their timeline and $100,000. With our process, because we're building in a climate-controlled factory environment, everything is super precise and dialed in. We're on time and on budget every single time.
And just to add on to what Eric just mentioned, I happened to build our home. We tore it down and built it from the ground up in Sherman Oaks. And excuse me, we had a fabulous contractor. We did a stick build. As to what Eric said, there were just costs that we couldn't foresee that just got, the change orders were crazy. And then also going through the process with the city of having inspectors come inspecting every inch of the build. You'd get different people. One inspector would have you change something, then the other one would have you change it back. And it just got so costly on so many levels, which here to a manufactured home, those headaches are non-existent. We price guarantee what we do. We're giving you a very detailed with our project proposals, a way that you can really see what this project's going to cost, very transparent. There's no hidden costs. We're not going to change order you down the road, which other companies do. Just to touch on this a little bit, is we have 3 different exterior styles. The top, contemporary cottage, right is the modern farmhouse, and for a more sleek modern look, we have the urban bungalow. Again, with all of these, we can change the exteriors to stucco or shingle, depending on what you like. We offer 3 standard colors. Top left is our linen ruffle, to the right is our Dover gray, and to the lower left is our charcoal. We can do custom colors if you want us to match that of your primary residence. That's not a problem at all. We can also have factory built. If you look at the modern farmhouse down at the bottom, decks that are factory built on the smaller end of the unit. One other thing I want to point out is our pricing and packages are all inclusive. It's including so many upgrades that these truly are, to what Eric was saying, turnkey. You can bring your sleeping bag and your pillow in there and you're ready to go. But one detail I think is good to see from this angle is if you look at the clerestory windows, those are typically put above the living room. And it creates a really lovely, bright, natural light that goes through the whole unit. And I think this is really, really important, especially if you end up with one of our smaller units. It creates a better, spatially, it doesn't seem as small because you're getting that natural light into the unit. So we offer 9 different floor plans. And the smaller units are what we call our 1 mod, so a single mod. They come in 1 piece for delivery. These units are great, especially in certain parts of LA where you don't have a lot of usable space in your backyard and you don't want to give up your entire backyard for the ADU. You'd like some space as well. That's where these units come in very, very nicely. Love the floor plans of these 2 in particular, where you have this great flow of the living area to the right. You do on the, you might note on the 450, one thing, all the appliances are included in the base price, as well as an LG washer and dryer. In the 450, you'll notice in the bathroom is where our stacked washer dryer is located. When you get a little bigger with the 550, you have a laundry area, which is nice as well.
One thing I'll just add on here, Liz, since you mentioned that we are very flexible, especially compared to other ADU companies out there, we do have 9 floor plans, and then within those floor plans, we can do a lot of manual customization and adjustments to make sure you have the unit that fits for you. Where things really start to get interesting here, this is all high-level generalized information. For you as a customer, where things really get exciting is when we come out on site and do that site visit, where we can really take measurements and photos and look at a delivery pathway and map out the utility infrastructure. So you can figure out which of these models will really fit and make the most sense on your property specifically. And as mentioned, towards the end of this webinar, we'll have a discount code to give you guys half off for webinar attendees only to schedule those site visits and have us out to your property for an assessment.
And I might add real quickly on that last slide real quick is we do have a new Model 450 coming out because of the sizes of a lot of properties here in Southern California. It's a little more compacted. It's still the same square footage, but it's another option. So thank you. So here we start to move a little larger. The one unit I really want to focus here is on, I think all of our favorites is the 750. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Not only do you get the two bedroom and a nice flow of the livable space, I might also add that with the units, you have two doors, one being the front door, you have one additional door. So for example, if you look at the 750, you can do nice sliding door, French doors onto the backyard, just to make better use of that common area. But back to the 750, one of the under the California law, once you get above 750 square feet or 750 or more, you'll notice this unit happens to be 749, and there's a reason for that. The minute you hit 750, you get into what's called an impact fee. And this is done at a city or county level. And that's a one-time fee that you need to pay going over 750 square feet. It can go to schools, it can go to water, various things. So what we do is, like I said, we intentionally made this one 749 so you can get that larger space and avoid having to pay that impact fee. And just I get questioned this a lot. How much is that impact fee going to be? It ranges according to city and county. It can run around $10,000. All of that is determined when we get to our permit phase of putting that permit package together, submitting it to the city. We'll know exactly what that fee is.
Yeah, and you'll see that in your proposal as well after we're done with the site visit. We'd like to scope everything out in advance. One thing I'll say, this is a special bonus that I hadn't planned on mentioning, but I'm going to mention it to the attendees today in Southern California. We actually have a 750 on inventory, brand new model that came out of the factory just in the last couple of weeks. So if anyone wants to save 2+ months on their development time, typically it takes about 7 to 9 months. So this would be saving 2 additional months off that. We do have a fully constructed and built 750 available. It can't be modified on the interior anymore, but the exterior could still be modified. So reach out to us via our website if that's interesting for you.
Here we get to the 2 bedrooms, which are both very popular. One thing I'll note with these is that they are created in 2 mods. So there's a marriage line in the middle. So what we do is on site when we are putting these onto the foundation, which I'll touch in just a second after I finish this thought, there won't be any lines whatsoever. We finish the flooring, connect everything there beautifully. As Eric said, there is some flexibility inside these units. As far as opening walls, I'll show you in another unit that I'm doing for one of our clients. That's an interesting way to expand the look. But to touch on foundations, which we didn't, all of our units are built on what's called a stem wall foundation. These are raised foundation. You'll have a crawl space underneath. All of the utilities will be under there. And these are very secure. They've had to follow earthquake standards, which is always a big question for us down here. One thing I'll throw in there that we're talking about this is typically a traditional build is using 2x4s. We're using 2x6s. And the reason being for that is we want to create as much insulation as possible. So these really have the feel of a true home. These are popular with investors because now we're getting up to that 3-bedroom, 2-bath that typically warrant a lot more rent, stepping up from that 2-bedroom. Here is a way you can make some alterations. If you take a look at the 950, as I was mentioning, you can take down that wall between the living room and the bedroom if you wanted to create more of an open space there. You can change around the placement of windows. You can't change the amount of windows, but that's something that we can do as well. We'll touch on some of the interiors, but there's a lot we can do with that Once you get to the larger units, center island in the kitchen is really nice with counter space, bar stools. These are really amazing. I love the larger ones. And these again are 2 mod.
And this is just all cost savings for you, right? Because with this more constrained design process, you still have the flexibility to get what you want, but without the need to hire an architect and go through 25 iterations that all sort of cost money. So right out of the gate, you're just saving $15,000 off architectural fees and structural engineering fees.
This is the largest, which is the 1200. So maybe you can touch real quickly on this, Eric, about the benefits of, if you can fit a 1050 or 950, why you might want to go as the cost savings of a 1200 and from an investor
Well,
standpoint.
there's some fixed costs associated with prefab construction. Like, let's say we need a crane to deliver a unit to your backyard. We only have to pay for that crane once, and it's the same cost regardless. So as you're building more square footage, naturally the amortization there drives your dollars per square foot and cost to construct down. But your rents are going to keep going up as an investor, so it just categorically increases your cap rates.
Here, I'll touch on this as well. And of course, if after this you have any questions, I really highly encourage you to go through the assessment fee. They're so helpful. Whether you go with us or someone else, it's so important to get a very transparent idea of what this is going to cost. So as I touched a little bit on our baseline, it's floor coverings, it's the cabinets, it's the fixtures and finishes, and in our pricing where it's not apples to apples when you look at other companies. As this example shows, if you just look off the bat, why is a competitor 159 and why are we 249? There's a real good reason. We're including permits and plans, the site prep, the foundation, as I mentioned, the interior and exterior finishes, the utility connections, and delivery. All of this is included. So if you look at the bottom line of all this, we're actually over 50 grand less, generally speaking.
That would just be another prefab builder. If you're looking to stick build an ADU, we're going to be half as expensive as they will be because they have an army of subcontractors that all have margins they need to make to be profitable. So not only are you dealing with orchestrating this massive construction project and this army of subcontractors, you're going to pay a lot less because there's a lot less margin built in, and you're buying in bulk, you're building in a factory where you can build a lot of units in a day with lower skilled labor, and you have machines doing, assembly line precision, moving units through quickly at a super high quality bar of construction. So it's just going to drive the price down. And to echo what Liz said, this ability to not only be the dealer of the ADU itself, the unit itself, but be the GC of record on the site work and the construction side, we really are owning and are accountable to the site work pricing, which, as you can see, really adds up. And all of these other ADU providers generally do not help you at all with the site work side. So you have to go hire a GC. They're going to change order you to death. They're not owning or accountable to the site work costs at all. We're completely inclusive, and as a result, are by far the most complete and affordable ADU provider, period. So what does our process look like if you want to get started? So I just want to highlight here, like all of these things, utility connections, site prep, do we need to do any demolition? Are you on a slope that needs grading? What sort of foundation system do we need to build that's going to be seismically safe? What are the unique nuances of permitting in your local jurisdiction? Those things all need to be priced out, quoted for you, and scoped in advance when you get your proposal. To do that, we have to get on site and do a site visit. So we're really here at this stage right now. You're getting like very high level general information. We call this sort of like a virtual home assessment, where we can kind of talk through at a high level how the ADU process works and some of the general like laws, regulations, and costs associated with the project. Where things start to get really interesting and exciting for you is when we can get on your property, discuss specific property feasibility, specific local permit costs, specific local rules and regulations, and all of the things I talked about on the site work, utility, delivery pathways, grading, demo, foundation work, etc. So to do that, typically we collect a $1,000 assessment fee that is fully refundable at any time for any reason if you don't want to move forward. But just to ensure that you're serious about the project, we need to collect this up front. We get on site, we scope out a fully complete proposal with line by line quotes where we've researched what every little thing is going to cost for your project. and we present you with a proposal. And there you can decide to go or no go after you've got a fully complete and scoped proposal in front of you. And generally, we are very much a customer first company, and we try to make as much of this refundable at any time for you as possible. Certainly, our assessment fee is completely refundable at any time for any reason. So what do you get if you move forward with an assessment and a site visit here to generate that proposal? Well, the first thing we're going to do is a kickoff call. You'll be getting the discount code shortly in the chat and via email after this. You'd pay that. We'd show up on site and do the site visit. We'd do some siting and orientation and help you select which unit is the most likely for you in a kickoff call. And then we'd go through a design session with our in-house interior designers and project coordinators. So you'd select the specific finishes and fixtures of your layout. All of those are price included unless you select some premium upgrades. We then present you with that fully scoped project proposal where you can say this is not a fit for me and get a full refund, or this is a fit and move forward with an additional, we have a $9,000 fee to move forward there after you've seen a proposal. Timeline wise, this whole process, soup to nuts, takes about 7 to 9 weeks. 7 or 9 months. Excuse me. I wish it took 7 to 9 weeks. Maybe with the inventory 750, we can save about 2 months off that, but not 7 to 9 weeks. So what does it look like? It's pretty quick. It's about half the time of traditional stick-built construction, and that's really because, as mentioned, we're doing the site work concurrently with the unit work that typically has to happen in sequence. We can do them at the same time since we're building offsite in a factory. We also, it's very rare to have delays because we're in a climate-controlled, factory environment where things are run like clockwork on an assembly line. But we're here now, right, in the getting to know your property phase, 2 or 3 weeks. Generally 2 or 3 months to prep your permit package, 2 or 3 months to submit and review and get your permits approved, and then 2 or 3 months of actual build time. That is a super minimal amount of build time on site with 7 a.m. hammers and jackhammers relative to the 18 months of stick-built disturbance to your life or your tenants' lives. The other thing that we were going to mention here, Liz, you mentioned a lot of other ADU companies are boasting 5 to 6 months, and quite frankly, that's just malarkey. We really pride ourselves in being an ethical and transparent company. That's why we price out everything all-inclusive and give you a transparent upfront proposal before you've invested a ton of money in the project to understand what your all-in true costs will be and not get change ordered to death later. It's the same thing with the timeline. We know that there's a 60-day mandate to turn around permits, but we also know that San Jose and LA and a lot of big cities are super delayed and are not hitting that 60-day mandate, largely due to the pandemic. So your permitting timeline is not going to hit 60 days. It's going to be more like 90 days. And so we're presenting you a realistic 7 to 9 month timeline, unlike the unrealistic 5 to 6 month timelines that you'll hear from other folks. That's just not possible. No one can build faster than we can. The key is really getting through that permitting process to unblock construction, which is pretty quick. So as mentioned, special webinar offer for attendees. This is good until the end of day on Monday, January 25th. Typically, our project proposal fee to come out and do that site visit, do that design session is $1,000. For attending the webinar today, we've got it half off for only $500. That code, I'm sure, is being chatted to you just about now, and you'll get an email after the presentation. You also will get, for all of our customers that are in the proposal phase or beyond, priority access to our very, very in-demand and very limited time slot Burbank model home. Due to the pandemic, it has to be by appointment and it's very tight, not a lot of time slots available. So customers that are in our proposal phase obviously have priority access to that Burbank model home. As mentioned, we'd love to have you out. This is opening mid to late February is currently the time slot for opening the Burbank model home. We also have an Oakland model home available now. And I was just in Santa Rosa yesterday where we have another one going in. We were doing our set, which is always an exciting day. That's at 1200 up in Santa Rosa. But it's a great opportunity to get on site, touch and feel the units, look at some of the finishes and fixtures, understand sort of what's possible to be built for you, what the customizations are, and take a look at how high quality the construction and finishes are. And now we have time for questions. We ran a little bit long, but we still have 20 minutes here for questions, which is a good amount.
Right.
Liz, do
Should
you
I,
have the
s-
Q&A open
should I
there?
start?
Go for it. Just feel free to
Okay,
rattle off any questions that look like they would apply to sort of a broad audience here.
okay, well, I'll take the first one here. What model home version do you have at Burbank? We are in the process of having that delivered. We'll have hard and landscaping around it, but it will be our 550 version, which I think is a great one to take a look at because it'll help visualize conceptually some of the larger units.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, the model home, you can also think of it as a sort of a finishes construction quality showcase. We have 3D walkthroughs and renderings of all the units, so you can get a feel for the space and size. What I think you really want to get a feel for is the quality of construction, the craftsmanship, the difference between a Corian versus a quartz countertop, those types of things. And universally, I mean, we've had just people blown away when they've come to visit the model home. So we'd love to have you out on site.
I'll have you answer this one, Eric. Maybe we'll go back and forth here. I saw it said $5,000 credit for the electrical upgrade. Did I read that correctly?
Boy, I'm not sure what that's referencing. Probably the baseline pricing.
Yeah, that's what I think they're getting at.
Okay, so as mentioned, we provide our pricing upfront on the website is all in. And that's really different than what you see from other providers in the space. And the reason we do that is because we're an ethical and transparent company. We want to set realistic expectations. So our pricing on the website includes the unit itself and then baseline site work for like a typical easy install of a unit. So a flat site, nothing complex, normal trenching and water, power, utility connections, all of the things we typically expect on a project. But we have to come out on site, right? The website pricing is not the pricing by design that you'll see in your proposal because every property has site-specific characteristics and every customer has specific design requests. So what we need to do is get you from the website pricing to your pricing in a specific proposal. The pricing on our website could come down. We have some customers actually downgrade some of our standard upgrades that exist at our baseline pricing for the unit itself. So if you downgrade the flooring, for example, you could actually save money and have lower prices than what's on the website. For the question about it was a utility question. So we include understanding that you're going to need pricing for connecting, for example, water to the ADU. So we price out up to 50 feet of trenching and the cost that it would take us to connect a water service and all the plumbing and piping to your primary residence and get that up and running. Some customers need to trench 200 feet through concrete and connect to a new hot tap at the city water on the street. That's a lot more expensive. So we price that out up front in your proposal after we do a site visit so you understand what that costs. So what that baseline price was showing was just how much we have budgeted for you as an allowance with a baseline install, but understanding that some sites are more complex than that and those prices could go up from the website to your proposal. That makes sense?
All right. I'll take the next one. Will the 1,000 assessment fee, which is actually a $500 assessment fee, so it's a $500 discount, included in the final cost balance, or is it additional? To answer that question, it will be included in the final cost balance. It is not in addition to.
Yeah. So if you look at our website pricing in your proposal, you'll actually see it's $500 less because not only is the initial fee included, the $500 discount carries through all the way.
Who can finance this type of construction? I'll give this one to you, Eric, since you're our
Financing is a very
finance.
emerging and dynamic space in the world of ADUs. So there's a lot here that is specific to your property and specific to you as a customer. Are you a multifamily property owner looking to build 2 detached ADUs? Is this a duplex or an 8-unit property? Are you a single family homeowner with a lot of equity? Are you a single family homeowner without a ton of home equity? All these things will impact the type of referrals we make to our financing partners. I will talk right now about the base case, which would be a single family homeowner looking to add 1 detached ADU. So The best loan in the world is an American mortgage, as far as I can tell. It's government subsidized effectively, which means you're going to get unfindable terms compared to any other financing product that exists, no matter what industry or sector you're looking at. 30-year fixed rate, very straightforward terms with interest rates that are right now the lowest they've ever been. So if you're building an ADU on a single family home, you're almost certainly going to want to look in the world of mortgage products rather than personal loans or other types of like vendor financing to build your ADU. In the mortgage world, by far the most common solution we see for customers is a cash out refinance, especially because rates are so low right now. It makes sense for almost everyone, as long as you have the equity available in your current home's value to be able to do a cash out refinance. And that unlocks a lot of budget for a lot of folks to be able to build an ADU, and it's funds that you control in a very well understood and simple financing product. If you don't have a ton of equity, thankfully, Fannie and Freddie are pseudo-governmental entities that back residential lending. They're both extremely pro ADUs because ADUs are sort of naturally pro affordable and attainable housing, and that's part of their mandate. Recently, Fannie and Freddie unlocked a bunch of new rules to make it easier for lenders to provide loans on single-family homes adding an ADU. One of the changes they made, among many, was that they are now very pro HUD code manufactured home ADUs. It's also, they've made it a lot easier for appraisers to underwrite these homes and to look for comps. And with those changes, now renovation loans are available for homeowners looking to build an ADU. And a renovation loan is great because it allows you to borrow against your future homes as improved value rather than your existing home's value at much higher LTVs as well. So can unlock a lot of more budget with renovation lending.
All right, I'll take this one, and I hope I'm understanding the question correctly. The question is, I have a flat backyard and then a slope. Can the slope be used to push back the ADU? Our ADUs can't be built on a slope. We can excavate, if it's a slight slope, and make it leveled in order to do the stem wall foundation, but our stem wall foundation cannot be done on a slope. So I'm hoping that takes care of that question.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the slope. We need to come look at that site. So I would encourage you to consider paying the discounted assessment fee, which is fully refundable, and having us out on site. There's a couple options with slopes. As Liz mentioned, we can't do the stem wall foundation, but we can excavate and we can do some grading to make it flat. Maybe we have to build a retaining wall. Maybe we don't. There'll definitely be some additional cost premiums on the site work that you'll see quoted out in advance on your proposal before you need to decide to move forward. We've also looked at some really complicated stilting systems, and they're doable. I mean, we can do anything pretty much. It's just that they are very expensive, and our goal is to drive the cost down as low as possible for the customer. So generally those projects don't move forward, but we can certainly take a look and try to make it work for your budget.
All right, I'll read this one for you, Eric. Can you help navigate a property master plan? We have 2 acres. To make sure that we are considering all future options, we would eventually like 2 ADUs and a small pool house. Is this part of the property planning fee?
We can definitely take a look at it. I don't want to go into too much depth here, given that there's sort of a large number of attendees. Reach out, be in touch with your property specifics, have us out on site, and we can look through it. But we have done things with properties where we've helped customers understand their subdividing options or multiple ADUs or things like that. It's certainly not our core expertise. Our core expertise is the permitting process for detached ADUs only.
Okay, someone wanted this for you specifically, Eric. I believe you mentioned earlier 2-story ADUs must be a minimum of 800 square feet. Is that correct?
I mean, that's what the LA city law says. I definitely know of ADUs that are 2-story and don't meet that. It takes you out of the ministerial review process. Just so everyone understands what that means. 2 years ago, if you had to build an ADU, first of all, you had like a 10% chance of it getting approved, period. You'd work up plans with an architect, spend 10 grand, then go through blueprints with a structural engineer, spend another 5 to 10 grand. So you're 20 grand out of pocket. Now you're submitting custom plans to the city before you've even gotten a bid from GCs on construction costs. And it's a discretionary and design-oriented review process. They can say no because of any reason they want. Your neighbors are in City Hall complaining. Your HOA has decided they don't want to do it. They're going to say no. It takes years to get a discretionary permit approved, and it may never be approved. Oftentimes, if it is approved, it's dramatically different than what you originally submitted. Nobody wants to go through a discretionary process if they can avoid it. So as long as you're building an ADU that fits within the state mandated guidelines and sort of build box, you can go through a ministerial review process. So anytime you're building ministerial, meaning 60 days, check a few boxes, and it's approved with no discretionary design process, your HOA can't get involved, your neighbors can't get involved, nothing. You want the ministerial if you can get it. If you're building 2 stories, you're definitively doing a discretionary process and going through likely a difficult and arduous process with the city. For some sites, it's the only option, or it makes the most sense. We can't do it, as mentioned, so I'd encourage you to reach out to an architect to get that process started if that's what you want to do.
All right, I'll take this one. How would the fire marshal find out if your setbacks are less than 12 feet? Once our units are delivered, they're set onto the stem wall foundation. So once that is done, it's inspected and you do receive a certificate of occupancy from the city. So there is the possibility there. However, being the company that we are and we're extraordinarily ethical, we're not going to do anything to jeopardize any of the standards that are required by law.
Well, and even more than that, I mean, the fire marshal takes a look at your plans when you submit them at the permitting phase. So it goes through planning, then building, then all these other departments get a crack at it. Fire marshal is one of those folks that looks at the site plan that's submitted.
Do the regulations change if you do not do a prefab unit, for example, utility and sewer lines? You want to take that one, Eric?
Yeah, that's a nuanced question. So state law doesn't really care if you're building prefab, manufactured, modular, stick built, panelized. They're looking at the big picture. They want to create more housing for a state that desperately needs it. State law doesn't really talk about how you build. Local city code on the planning department side also doesn't really care how you build. They care more about that, like the usage fits in line with the mandate they're getting from the state and what they've layered on top of that as a local city. The building department, which regulates, what type of materials are used and how far apart nails are spaced and the structural engineering of a foundation system, that building department cares a lot because there's state code, then there's local code, and every little jurisdiction has different building code. It's kind of a nightmare to navigate if you're doing a stick-built process or a prefab modular process. That's one of the amazing efficiencies that Habitat has developed. We're building not to state and local building code, but to universally approved everywhere, very stringent federal HUD building code. So before our units even leave the factory, they've been inspected and approved by a federal HUD and HCD building inspector. So we're not subject to some of these onerous local nuances in building code jurisdiction. Like, for example, in LA, you have to have solar systems no matter what. It's not an option to you as a homeowner if you're building a detached ADU. You have to add them unless you're building with us because we're building the HUD code. Things like utilities and water connection, that really won't change. I mean, kind of no matter how you're building, you're going to have a foundation cost, a water connection cost. Edison or PG&E is going to come out and charge you money to upgrade your electrical panel or connect the electrical wires to the panel in the ADU. Those are a little bit more constant, regardless of the building method.
All right, I'll take these next two. Did I hear 12-foot setback? I thought it was 4. Yes, you are correct that for the rear and side of the property, it is 4 feet. From the primary residence, it's 6 to 10 feet. Another question, are sprinklers a requirement for this type of homes? If you currently have fire sprinklers inside your primary residence, yes, you're going to need those in the ADU. Depending on certain areas, they can be required by the fire marshal. What we can do is a lot of times if we bump the setbacks instead of the 4x4 to 6 feet and 6 feet, a lot of times that can alleviate the fire marshal from requiring those fire sprinklers inside the units.
Yeah, it's actually interesting on fire sprinklers. State law says very clearly if you don't have fire sprinklers in the main home, they cannot legally be required on the ADU. Fire marshals have not exactly been following that, and it's in the interest of safety for the community, so we want to try to respect that. As long as your setbacks are like 5 feet as opposed to 4 feet, you shouldn't need fire sprinklers. Liz, could you jump, by the way, I just want to make sure we get to the oldest questions, the ones that were asked first, if you scroll all the way to the top.
Yep, it looks like most of these are been done from behind the scenes. You touched that one. Okay, the next one then is.
Liz, this is Robin. If it says that it's going to be answered live, that just means you guys need to answer it live.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I think you mentioned HUD approved, mentioned your units are HUD approved. Most others are not, and conventional lenders do not require it. Other than no solar requirements, are there any other benefits?
Yeah, it's way less expensive. So if you'd like to save 50K on your project, literally line by line, we go to our factory and we're building mod on one side and HUD on the next line over. Identical units, 50K less expensive. Number of complicated, nuanced reasons for it. But not only is it faster and more efficient because you're getting approved at the federal level, you don't have to deal with these local permitting jurisdictions. It's way less expensive. The universe of vendors for the same materials and same construction quality is just way less expensive.
Okay, I'll take this one. How do property taxes increase after building the ADU? What is done, it's called a blended tax assessment. So it runs about 1.1% of the cost of the ADU. Next question.
Assessment means that your primary residence is completely unaffected. You will not be reassessed on your primary.
Next one, can these be made for a handicapped parent? Absolutely, we can accommodate that for you as well. So that's not a problem for us to do that for you. Can sewage and power be made separate from the main home?
Totally. It can cost a little bit more and we'll price it out for you in your proposal. You have a lot of optionality to create new services with the city. I think what a lot of people actually want is not a new service with the city. It's much cheaper oftentimes to run it off your main home. You just want to separately meter it so that you can bill out your tenant separately. You don't really actually need a brand new service that can add a lot of money to your construction project.
Okay. Will you hook up into a septic tank? Yes, we can. In some occasions, a new septic tank either needs to be created or upgrade the existing septic tank. Here, this one's a good one for you, Eric. If I want to rent out the unit, am I required to accept Section 8?
No. You can rent however you want. You can rent to family member, market rate. There are some incentive programs out there that are generally oversubscribed, so not super available today. That if you do rent to median or lower income individuals, you can get like loan forgiveness or grants to build an ADU. I know LA specifically has a few programs like that, but again, they're very oversubscribed and not super available today.
Okay, does the 750 model include a laundry room? It's a little laundry nook off inside the bathroom. Eric, do you want to take this one? Will your new 450 model fit into a 40-foot wide lot? Under a 32, let me take
the dimensions and add on 4 or 5 foot setbacks from the unit to the rear and side property lines. The better way for us to answer this question about specific properties is to have us on site and get us set up for a site visit.
Okay. Is the price to build within a structure less than the prefab homes? Meaning, is the cost less to build a garage conversion ADU?
Super complicated question. can't be answered without understanding your garage specifically. Sometimes a garage conversion can be less expensive. It is actually more likely that a garage conversion is secretly a garage tear down and complete rebuild. There's not a lot in garages that can be reused. Oftentimes, the foundation system is not up to code for being permitted for livable occupancy. There oftentimes is only electricity and no water or sewer. Usually the walls have to be rebuilt because they're just 2x2s and you really want 2x6s or 2x4s. The roof is not structurally sound for livable occupancy, etc. So if you're doing a complete tear down and rebuild, it actually can be more expensive than traditional stick built construction. Sometimes it's less if there's a lot in the garage you can reuse, but it's really site specific. The other thing is you're limited, right? Your garage is going to be 20 by 20. So only thing you can really do there is a tidy little 1-bedroom.
Can you build the main house and the ADU at the same time?
Yes, you are under state law allowed to permit and build and then get simultaneous certificates of occupancy. You don't need an existing standing primary residence. You cannot build the ADU on its own, though. You have to build a primary residence with it. By the way, everyone, we're at time. I'm happy to keep answering questions. There's a poll out. I would love it if people would complete the poll, and everyone should have gotten the discount code. It should be coming via email as well to get signed up for a site visit. But thank you for attending. We'll stay on and keep answering questions because, quite frankly, I have nothing else to do on a Saturday. But thank you for coming. I hope you learned a lot. We really hope you build an ADU, whether it's with us or otherwise. And then please complete the poll.
And we'd love meeting you all and working with you. All right, so shall we continue here?
Yeah, I'm happy to continue.
Okay, me too. It's raining here anyway. I don't know about up north, so.
Funny.
Are you covering the Inland Empire, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties as well?
Technically, it's out of service area, but we do have a bunch of projects out there, so I'm sure we can make it work. As long as you've got the intent and a feasible property, we want to help you build an ADU, so let us know. I think, Liz, didn't you just bring in a customer?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, yeah, interestingly enough, that this question came up. We're going to be doing a couple in Riverside as we speak, and I believe one in Ontario, which would be the Inland Empire. So
and San Dimas as well.
Yeah, so it's a yes nod. I'll let you do this one. I'll take the next one after this. Eric, can you explain the 5-year primary residence law?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's referring to the 5-year period, which is now 1 year is over. So there's 4 years left. This is under state law. There is now 4 years remaining on a complete legal waiver of owner occupancy. So historically, one of the ways your local jurisdiction prevented you or discouraged you from building an ADU was by saying that if you built the ADU, you would not be allowed to rent it. So that discouraged a lot of folks from building ADUs. The state has said anyone who builds an ADU in the next now 4 years, no matter what, cannot be required to live in either the ADU or the primary residence. Everyone has a right to rent both the ADU and the primary residence if they want to. So that is a 5-year waiver on owner occupancy requirements when building an ADU. You can't short-term rent these, by the way. It has to be a long-term rental. And then after the 5 years is up, we'll see if the state renews it. But anyone who built an ADU during this period is automatically grandfathered in for life to no owner occupancy requirement.
Okay, I'll give you this one's another loan question, so I'll throw it your way, Eric. Do you know if a VA loan can be used to finance this?
Sure. I don't know personally as much about VA renovation loans, but you could certainly do a VA refi. And if you have enough equity, you can certainly pull the funds out you need to build an ADU. VA obviously is great because, at least from what I remember back when I was more in the lending world, down payment requirements are quite low and interest rates are quite good.
All right, I'll take this next one. What are some typical disqualifiers during the assessment? I would say the main one is there's just not the proper room for the setbacks that we need to do, or, if there's a slight, I'd say that's probably the main one we come across. We do come across in terms of delivery. We're looking from Google Maps to get an idea of what those wires look like in front of your home. We can usually get enough of a feel when we're talking to you on the phone to determine if that's going to be a real issue. Sometimes the wires are a disqualifier. At the same time, if there's another way to drive the unit onto your property, for example, your house is on a corner lot, we can take down part of a fence. If you're on an alley, obviously we can do our best to get it through an alley delivery. One situation that came up yesterday, actually, with someone that is moving forward with us, the crane option, we also try and make this very cost effective. Yes, we could do a crane option. However, this property sides to a parking lot of an apartment building. So we will get permits to be allowed to do our delivery through that parking lot, take down part of the client's fencing and get it in that way, which is going to be a huge cost savings than doing the crane route, which is usually going to tack on a $15,000 to $20,000 premium with that. So we do try and get creative of ways of delivering the units to save you money.
By the way, $15,000 and $20,000 crane premium, still $100,000 less than alternatives to stick build. So,
okay, I'll let you take the final one here, Eric. Can these units be made to ADA standards?
So the question is a good one, but it's complicated. So there was a question earlier about accessibility, and we know that one of the main uses for ADUs is for aging in place or to bring grandparents closer to home, especially with the pandemic going on. ADA standards are extremely stringent, and actually, if you look at the law, only apply to like federal buildings or commercial spaces and public spaces. There probably isn't a residence in America that's truly built to the very, very strict ADA standards. What I think you really want actually is just accessibility features, right? You might want a ramp for a wheelchair, you might want wider doors, you might want a freedom accessible shower and grab bars, you might want a different type of cabinet or drawers, more overhangs, lower countertops. All of those features are things we can add, but we can't actually build to ADA standard because almost no one can. It's so stringent and almost no residences actually have that written standard.
Although I'll throw in, and you could add more to this because this is one of our clients up in Northern California where you're based part of the time, Eric, is there was one recent install that we did do with a gentleman who has some challenges. He's in a wheelchair, and we accommodated the unit. Great for him to be able to navigate himself. It's not, to what you were saying, 100% ADA, but we got it to a point where he can navigate through the interiors of that unit.
Super accessible.
Yeah. And I think that's it. So have a fabulous weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we would love to work with all of you. And please reach out to us with any further questions. Thanks so much for your time. Bye-bye.